The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. Hosted by Dave Hondel.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. I'm honored to have this guest for a second time on our show. Icon in the entertainment industry, Don McLean is with us again, and he has a new album coming out on May 17th called American Boys, and we'll get into that and several other topics with him. But first, I want to introduce my guest host tonight from out in L.A. You've seen him in Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Family Business, The Outlaws, and several other movies and TV shows. So I'd like to welcome my friend, Mr. Dan Jablons, to the show. Thanks for joining us, Dan. How's everything going out in L.A.?
Great. You know, I have to tell your listeners that I elbowed my way into this interview. When I heard you were going to be talking to the great Don McLean, who I've been listening to for 50 years, I was like, I got to get in on that. So, and, you know, maybe people don't know this, but, you know, the Recording Industry of America did a survey in 2001 about the greatest songs of the prior century, and his song was number 5 out of all of those songs that they had nominated there. So this is a hero of mine for a long time. I'm thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. And of course, that song was American Pie. We'll talk about his new album, which you spoke about, but I want to bring him in right now. Again, honored to have you on the show. Mr. Don McLean, welcome to the Stage Door Show for a second time.
Pleased and delighted.
Now, Don, American Boys coming out May 17th. We're all excited about that album, of course, and all new songs. So for our listeners, tell us about that album and the making of it.
Well, I wrote all the songs on this record. There are 12 brand new songs. 6 of them were written with the help of my guitar player, Vip Vipperman, who is also a songwriter. And so there are some different songs on here that have a bit of a different point of view. 2 of them are gospel oriented, which I probably wouldn't do, but I wrote the melodies and a lot of the lyrics to those because Vip and I were having a time a few years ago where he wasn't writing anything and I sure wasn't writing anything. So he said, well, you want to fool around with these? And yeah, I'm good at that. So I said, yeah. Well, it took me a few years. I was sitting on these songs. And then one day I woke up and I said, I've got it. I wrote the melody to Thunderstorm Girl and American Boys and 3 or 4 others right there. I had it, you know.
Wow.
So it's funny.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And, you know, that actually brings me to one of the questions I really wanted to ask you as a songwriter. How does the song actually start for you? Like, let's talk about Thunderstorm Girl for a moment, which is an amazing song. There's so many great. I love that one. I love Gypsy Road on this. I love the Vacant Luxury is an incredible song too. But how does that start for you, Don? Is it that the music starts first and then you find where you want to go lyrically, or do you get the idea lyrically and then you match up the music to it? Like, how does that work for you?
Let me tell you what I try to do. Honest to God, and I mean this, I try to stay away from doctors and I try to stay away from people. And I try to stay away from interviews. I try not to talk about myself or what I've done in the past. I have to, and I don't mind doing it, you know, but I try to keep my mind as young and free as it was when I was 22 or 23. And something would appeal to, would hit me. And it's not colored with who I am, what I should do, what I did, how well, nothing. It's just, how does it strike me? And if it strikes me as something I want to do, then I do it. So I am basically a very lucky person because I have been able to be a free spirit for my entire life. I have never worked for anyone. I started out loving Pete Seeger and the Weavers, and as well as Buddy Holly and Lead Belly and Josh White and Elvis Presley, all this stuff, Sinatra, all mixed together. And I figured if I could learn to play and sing, I could make enough money to have a little house in the woods somewhere, or, you know, on a little bit of land, and maybe have a horse and a dog and a garden or whatever. That was it. You know, and be able to do it myself with my singing and my music. Well, don't you know that once I got on that road and there was no looking back, even though I went to college and everything, after 5, 6, 7, 8 years, there was no going back. And there was no safety net. I had the time of my life. I didn't care. I could just as easily be homeless now as be wealthy, because I just wanted to do what appealed to me. And there were many years where nothing was going on, but I was always, working on something new or making another record or whatever. And then there were times when I was having hits and I was a big star for, 6 months. So it's like, and it's all added up now, here after 50 years. And the interesting and fascinating thing is because of the social networking, because of YouTube, because of all these things, all these appearances that I have made all over the world, hundreds and hundreds, are all on YouTube. You can see them. Who would have ever thought that back in 1980, 1970, 90, whatever, and see how I look and see how I sing and whatever, and it's incredibly good for a guy like me.
But it's nothing like seeing you live, though, now, Don. I mean, I wouldn't want to give that up for anything. But again, is it more the inspiration of the music that hits you first, or is it the lyric, or does it intertwine? How does that writing process happen for you?
I sing the song right into the tape machine.
Okay.
I start singing a song, and then I start right into the tape machine with the guitar. And then I'll get a little part of it, and then I'll think, well, what do I want to do with that? Do I want it to be? I can go anywhere with it. I can go anywhere I want with it. And at that point, you have to decide a lot of things. But the one thing that I never ever think about is, what do my audience think I ought to do?
Nice.
Ever. I only write these songs for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have started with a long, long time ago. I can still remember how that music is, that pretty opening, and I could have done it again. I could have done it a third time. I had a song.
Yeah.
But I went a different direction. So it's like a blank canvas. You can do whatever it is that you want, but you have to know where you're going.
The song Vincent, another one of your major hits that, was, I guess, based on Van Gogh's famous painting. But the nice, I like the background of that meaning that, is for the struggling artist. I mean, it really has a lot of meaning to it. And we have a lot of artists that listen to our show, and it really speaks to them, even to this day. So talk about that song.
Again, that could have been a maudlin disaster if I had been the wrong artist to sing that song, or if I had the wrong producer and turned it into some, bad, really stupid, silly thing that would make people laugh. It's right on the edge. You have to be, and that song is right on the edge. You have to sing it with feeling, but not a lot of feeling, and not a lot of histrionics or attempting to sell the song. One thing I don't ever do as a singer is sell a song. I don't do that. I sing the song as remarkably well as I know how to do it. And you can hear that on a song like Crying or Since I Don't Have You, which is one of the best performances I ever gave. And there's all sorts of things, strings and the Jordanaires and my great background more, and all these legends in Nashville, and they heard everybody. Yeah. But you don't oversing the song, and a lot of young people make a huge mistake. They don't make you feel anything, and they try to tell you they're feeling something by oversinging the song, and that's not how you do it.
That's and it's interesting you mentioned that, because speaking of feelings in songs, so many people have recorded "And I Love You So," which I just have to sneak that in there because it was the song that for my wife's and my wedding, and that means a lot to us to this day. And every time you sing it, it brings back all those feelings for us. And every time I've seen you perform it, it seems like you're performing it for the first time, and we get that feeling each time we hear you sing it.
Well, I trained myself, and believe me, I saw everybody as a young man. Everybody, and they're all the greats were around in pop, blues, rock and roll. You know, I saw everybody more than once, and I know what to do. And you have to. Sinatra was very interesting to watch because, you know, he had sung his songs for many, many years already in the 70s. But when he got in that song, he was feeling that song, and he was transmitting that to you. And yet he was never over singing the song, not singing a lot of notes, you know, and or, you know, facial expressions or anything. He was telling the story. And if you hear something like I Have Dreamed, which is a Rodgers and Hart song, a beautiful arrangement on the concert Sinatra record. I have dreamed that your arms are lovely. That's all. Oh, suddenly you realize you're in a dream and you're dreaming about this woman. And so much of the music that he sang that I love and that I've tried to write is about the mystique of women, which they have pretty much totally surrendered. But, and it's a shame because their mystique is the most powerful thing they had.
You are in so much of what you sing about and talk about. There's such deep emotion in so many of your great songs. How do you access that? Would you consider yourself to be an emotional guy, or how do you access that level of emotion? How does that come to you?
I am emotional, but I'm also very happy. I'm a happy person, but I also have empathy, and I put myself in the shoes of other people. And for example, there's a song on this album called The Ballad of George Floyd on the American Boys album. And I think I'm the first person to ever write a song about this because most everybody is afraid to touch it. But I used to call for my mother in the dark when I had pneumonia and asthma. I couldn't breathe, and she would ask me to call for her, and she would come at 2 a.m, and you have no idea what a mess it was. Crying and sweating and changing the bed, and her getting all upset and everything. And so it related. When I heard this man I heard him calling for his mother. It just touched me. I never know what's really going to touch me off, but I have empathy. I can put myself in anyone's shoes and know how they feel. And I think more Americans who are really, really divided now on one side or the other, we should be more empathetic and understand the other guy, you know, understand why he thinks what he thinks, and try to get that going, because otherwise, you know, you have a divided nation. And this is the thing that Lincoln spoke about: a house divided against itself cannot stand. This was during the Civil War, and we are very divided. And a lot of these radio, TV stations, MSNBC and Fox and everything in the old days when Trump was around, they were very, very active at trying to, you know, divide us. And they were doing it. It's not a good thing. It's not an American thing.
And this song is such a celebration of American musicians. And that was, from what I understand, a big influence for you in terms of writing the album, right, Don?
I wanted to say, and Vip and I wrote this together. And I wrote the melody and a lot of the lyrics, and he came up with this idea, and I changed it to American Boys. But whatever, we worked together, and he's wonderful on these 6 songs on this record. And I'm really proud now because the word invented is the important word. American Boys invented rock and roll. Yeah. The English, the Australians, the Canadians, the various people that have made I had hit groups in rock and roll used what we invented in America. And still, I don't care how successful the Rolling Stones are, and I love Mick Jagger. I truly do. I admire him, and I admire his group, and I love Keith Richards. But they will never be Chuck Berry. And they take their whole sound from Chuck Berry, and Chuck Berry invented that sound. He invented it. Invention is very important in music. And so that's the thing I wanted to get through in this song and be able to say it in these interviews. Americans, we invented jazz. We invented the blues. You know, nobody taught Leadbelly how to play the guitar. Nobody taught Mance Lipscomb. Nobody taught all the other blues musicians how to do this. They just did it, and we discovered it, but they invented it.
You know, music, you know, here in the United States and the creation of rock and roll and so forth, you know, overseas, you know, we, as a musician that's been doing this for decades, you know, give me your thoughts on performing overseas. Because when you tour everywhere here, overseas. And is there a particular place that you visit that you love going back to because of the people and because of the audiences?
And they're all great. They used to be somewhat different when there were regional differences, but in the last 50 years, everything has been so homogenized by radio and television. And television is 24/7. Radio is 24/7. There's 500 channels. I mean, come on. You know, and back 50 years ago, there was, you know, if you had a number one record, and I had a few of those, you were God. I mean, you were the biggest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Now you can have a number one, and who knows what it was the next week, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really amazing to do what Taylor Swift has done, which is to be a big star like she was for 15 years, and then somehow transform that into a form of stardom that has not been ever really seen before.
Yeah, very true.
This girl has done something that nobody's ever done before, because she does it all, and she knows how to do everything, and she is a genius, and she's amazing.
You have been so gracious in your acknowledgement of her, and she was lovely back with you as well, and that's an amazing thing. You know, early on, I know you spent a lot of time with Pete Seeger, and I wanted to ask you: is there a Pete Seeger story you haven't told, or a favorite Pete Seeger story that you have of your time of being with him and what that meant to you?
Well, I don't really tell stories about Pete Seeger. I know lots and lots of stories about him, but. One of the things I loved about him is he made huge mistakes on stage, and he would just slough it off. You know, he just would slough it off. I mean, big ones, big clangers. You know, he'd forget the words or he'd do something. I mean, and that was great for me, because when I was sort of brought up in a straight-laced environment in my family and in schooling and everything else, and everything had to be perfect, you know. And what I learned from him is doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, don't even think about perfection. Just do it, you know. And it was very liberating in that way. And so today, you know, when I'm on stage, if anything happens, and I've had everything happen, you know, fist fights, guys come on stage, you know, guys fall out of balconies, you name it. I just, you know, I'm cool with it, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, American Boys coming out May 17th. You know, Don, it's been, again, an honor and a pleasure. I know Dan and I both really appreciate you coming on the show and, you know, on iHeartRadio here. And we wish you nothing but success with the new album. And again, thank you so much for your time today.
We have a lot to be proud of here in this country.
Absolutely.
Well, you have a lot to be proud of here too, Don. This is a beautiful, beautiful album, and I just want to tell all the Don McLean fans out there that, you know, we've waited a long time for a new Don McLean album, and it's here, and it's worth the wait. It's phenomenal. You've got to get this album as soon as it hits on May 17th.
Absolutely. So again, you know, thank you so much, Don, and you know, my best to you and your family.
My pleasure.